We're going to hear from Tech Life Balance Factor Cap, and I'm going to welcome on Ryan Bell. Welcome, Ryan. Take it away.
Thanks, Kate. Hey, everyone. My name's Ryan Bell, and I'll be the moderator for our panel today on Tech Life Balance Factor Cap. I'm the founder of a digital wellbeing startup, which is conveniently called Tech Balance, a returning summit speaker, and a host of the Lookup UK group. Technology and social media are pervasive, problematic, and everlasting. So how can we healthily balance living in the digital world? Is this achievable? Is balance a myth? Today, we're going to hear about how our panel takes these considerations to the masses at their schools, and they're going to decide if Tech Life Balance is fact or cap. We've prepared some questions to steer the discussion, but if you have any of your own, please do feel free to put these in the chat, and we'll come to them towards the end of the panel. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today, and we have three amazing youth Lookup innovators: Adam Novak, the president of Shift FC, Morgan Helfand, the founder of Y4Y, and Geela Ramons, who's representing the National Active Minds. So to start things off, Morgan, could you share about how you approach conversations about tech life balance in your school?
Hello, my name is Morgan Helfand, and I'm a current senior in high school. I go to Woodside High School in the Bay Area in California, and I've been a part of the social media advocacy space for a really long time. Since middle school, I was a part of a nonprofit organization called My Digital Tattoo that works on educating youth specifically about the impact of their digital footprint. And I continued this through COVID and was a part of their podcast called Media in the Middle. So this is where I got my background education on like what it means to have a healthy relationship with your social media and with your tech. And then in high school, my school had a program called Freshman Transition, which means exactly what it sounds like. And basically every single freshman has a monthly orientation. And it was this time that wasn't utilized. So this year, I've been fortunate enough to partner with Lookup as an innovator and bring some importance and value to this time that was already existing in my high school through Safe with We, which is both an online platform and, as I mentioned, kind of an in-person pilot program to talk about social media, mental health, kind of growing up things in a tech-focused light. And we are piloting it this year. It's going great, and we're just starting to see the impacts and starting those conversations in my school. So that's kind of my background.
Thanks. That's very exciting. Thanks for sharing, Morgan. Adam, would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Adam Novak. I'm a student at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. I'm studying computer science and East Asian languages. And I founded a student organization called Shift SC at USC, sort of like inspired by this word shift, of shifting technology in a better direction. So it's a student org for socially responsible technology, and sort of bringing students together from all backgrounds, not just those who are in tech, but also those who care about the education, design, policy side to talk about these issues. One thing we ran through Shift SC were these digital well-being workshops, where we created a space for students to talk about issues, just like this, like tech life balance, digital well-being, and we are now working on expanding those workshops to grade schools in the LA area.
Thanks, Adam. And lastly, Geela.
Thank you so much for having me. So for me, I'm one of the former chapter presidents for Active Minds, which is one of the nation's nonprofits to change the conversation around mental health. So a lot of our work revolves around how we utilize tech life balance to promote mental health advocacy and to teach youth about how to handle these types of conversations. And alongside this, we focus a lot on social media platforms since this is the most beneficial way we've had to communicate our information. And so it's been really interesting over the past 3 years trying to work on an approach that helps us to advocate for mental health and one that doesn't overutilize the social media, but how do we more effectively approach the conversation from a holistic perspective?
Thanks, Geela. I'll direct the first question at you. So before we go through a series of questions on tech-life balance, I think it's important that we understand what it is, or at least how we would like to describe it. So in one sentence, can you describe what tech-life balance is or means to you?
So for me, tech life balance means being able to utilize technology without over relying on it as sort of like a social lubrication where we don't depend on the way that we portray ourselves on social media to project who we truly are when we're approaching other people in the real world.
Thanks. Adam or Morgan, do you have similar views or?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at using it without the dependence. My sentence would be a healthy relationship with one's personal devices. So thinking of tech not as just like a self-driving car, but as like the devices that we have on ourselves at all times, and thinking about our usage as like a relationship. Like it's by us all day long. We use it 4 hours plus a day. Like, what does that relationship look like?
That's great. Thanks. Morgan, did you have anything more to add to that?
I think those are some great. Yeah, I think that those are some great one sentences, and I would just add on that to me, it would be where tech is only beneficial to your life. It doesn't take away from things that exist off of the screen, and that it exists as and works in your life as a tool only for benefiting the things you already are pursuing.
That's great. So if we're looking at this tech life balance as a healthy relationship with technology, is that something that we can realistically have today? You know, does that kind of perfect or ideal tech life balance actually exist? I'll pick on Adam. So can you have that kind of perfect tech life balance in your head of this healthy relationship with technology? Can you have that?
Yeah, it's a great question because from my personal experience, like I've always had a relationship with like technology, or more recently, I suppose, like not liking its effects on using a phone all day and its effects on myself. And so I kind of took it to the extreme more recently, where last summer I went to live at a Vipassana meditation center. So it's sort of like a Buddhist monastery that entirely devotes itself to serious meditation courses of 10 days at a time. And so I went and lived and volunteered at this meditation center where people would put away their phones entirely, phones and computers, for 10 full days, and live kind of amongst life and see what it's like for themselves. And through that, I noticed that people, especially on the volunteering side, when I would talk with people who had sat a course and just came out of 10 days of no devices, everyone would have great things to say about it, but especially of the not having a phone and like a computer on them at all times. They might be excited to go back into their normal life after that 10 days of no phone and no computer. Oh, like I'm excited to see my family, excited to, just enjoy some good time with friends, even to go work again. But they tended to not want to use their phones. They would say, oh, I don't look forward to, opening up my phone and seeing these, all these notifications on my screen. And so I guess that's obviously not tech life balance, right? Because you're totally throwing away all of your technology to reach that. And we're in a world today where it seems like there's no getting around using technology somehow, right? We're all here on this panel together through a program on our devices. That's how we're communicating. So after going to the edges myself with no technology, coming back to it, I think there is a way to achieve tech-life balance. It takes effort and it takes intention. It's easier to just use your phone than to not use it. There's a lot of incentives that pull you into it. It's provide a lot of convenience, entertainment, but I think resisting that and being intentional about using our devices less is doable, and it can lead to a better balance in our lives.
Yeah, Geela and Morgan, I don't know what your thoughts are there on the balance, whether you think that maybe having these kind of digital detoxes is a good way to balance, or if there's ways that maybe you can kind of get around the notifications, or maybe have some kind of agreements within your friend groups for how you communicate and how you use social media together.
I guess for myself, I feel a little bit conflicted because a lot of my friend group and my support group is actually long distance. So I rely on tech, even just platforms like Discord, to talk a lot with my friends because I'm talking to people all the way in California or to people in Maryland, and I'm in South Florida. And so even though I'm almost on my computer a lot already as also a computer science student, and also just indulge in some of the other things I enjoy, like playing video games, there's the sense that I also depend more on technology just because that's the best way to talk to the people I'm closest to at this time. I also think it's important that sometimes, while it is good to experience digital detoxes, it can sometimes disconnect us from other things that are happening that we should be aware of in society. I remember that a few years ago, I was in a summer camp and I was away from my phone for a whole month. And while that helped me to recenter myself emotionally and spiritually, in this setting. At the same time, the one thing I wished I knew more was what's still going on in society, and maybe that's just because the activist side of me doesn't want to lose contact or lose in touch with what's happening around me, and I want to make sure I still connect to other things that are happening, even if it's outside of my own friend group.
Yeah, so something I've noticed as well. If you've got long distance relationships, then tech can be really valuable there. So if I'm someone listening to this panel right now, oh, sorry, Morgan.
Sorry, I think I'm just delayed a little bit. But just to add on to what Geela said, I think that's, she kind of illustrated exactly what makes it hard for me to have a healthy tech life balance. And that being the thought in the back of your mind that you are missing out on things that are important that are taking place on tech. And I would say that is the number one reason, or I mean, for me, why I at times have not had a healthy tech life balance. And with that being said, I do think that is an attainable goal. And going back to what Adam said, like the way to reach that, whether or not it's like taking a detox, I think the most important thing you can have there is like awareness. And once you take that step and really like, become focused on it as a goal to be achieving that tech life balance, that you can get there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really nice way of looking at things. So if I'm someone that's sitting at home now listening to this panel and I haven't been paying too much attention to my tech, but maybe I feel like I could be overusing it at times, what are maybe some of the signs that you should be looking for that maybe your tech use is unbalanced, or there's things that you could improve on? Yeah, what's kind of maybe like some warning signs for you guys personally, or some advice that you would maybe give to other people?
Sure, I could start this one off. So To start, I would say your closest friends and your family have probably the best idea of like where you're at with your tech life balance, given that you spend the most amount of time with each other. And so just see like having a conversation with your family about this topic in particular could, I think, be helpful, not just for you to gauge where you're at, but also for your other family members to gauge where they're at as well, and just to share how each other feel about this topic in particular. I know I've spoken with friends who have shared similar feelings that they have someone in their family who uses phones too much at like the dinner table or when they're all together going out, and they wish they were more present with them. So I think that creating a conversation with your family is probably, if you can't do it with your family, then where else could you do it? For your own personal life, I would say, like I myself have had more balance and less balance before. I noticed some things when I'm less balanced are like I'll use my phone right when I wake up and before I go to sleep. Like I'll have my phone by my side. First thing I wake up, I find, even though I should be like getting in the shower, I have a book I want to read. I'll find some like excuse in my head for why I should like check my phone right now, even though it can and most always can wait, right? And so like your phone, especially your phone usage around your sleep schedule and in your own room can be telling of kind of where you're at in terms of balance.
Geela, how about for yourself? What are some signs for you? Because I guess maybe it's more tricky if you've got some people that you want to connect with that are living in different time zones. So it might be tricky to kind of switch off at different hours. How do you kind of manage your balance?
I think for me, I usually base it off of whether it's for myself or noticing it in friends is changes in attitude or behavior. There's a lot of ways we present like our authentic selves in real life, and there's certain things you might not say. And I guess the best example I can always draw from is video games and how just connecting with others through the video game realm in that sort of tech platform can ultimately change your personality. Toxic behavior in video game culture, where there are things you'll say about other people you're playing with if they're strangers on your team because the game pairs you with them, or even just like people you're going against. There's a lot of things that you'd consider bad sportsmanship or something you'd never say to someone in front of their face when you're meeting them in person. And you might say it as a joke, or sometimes when you're getting upset, you end up saying it for real, but you're not saying it in front of their face because ultimately at the end of the day, you're just seeing a name on a platform. Usually, when I see myself or in my friends someone acting more of that type of bad sportsmanship or saying things that I know they would never say in real life, that's when I know it's a sign that maybe they're too much on Discord or too much on games like Valorant, because that's what I play. Uh, Usually, that's what I try to look at. Are they acting not the same fashion that I know them to be, or how they normally act when I interact with them in person?
Thanks, Gina. Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time playing Fortnite, so kind of similar to Valorant, but yeah, maybe a bit different. Yeah, it's a good point actually. So it's not just about maybe too much screen time. It's also about what you're actually doing on the screens and the types of behaviors that you're engaging with. And how about you, Morgan? What's some signs for yourself that maybe your tech life is out of balance, or even signs that it is in balance? And
Well, I would just add on to what Adam said. A lot of times I can tell I am falling into like a bad tech life balance when I set myself limits and I cannot meet my own limit. So, like TikTok, which is just kind of like an endless scrolling app, if you're unfamiliar with it, it means that it's like YouTube, like you can spend hours on it and just fall into a rabbit hole. And so if I do it on a school day and I tell myself I only have an hour to go on TikTok and I continuously surpass my own time limit, like I know I'm out of control and that like this is unhealthy, that my tech is controlling my timeline instead of me. And then I asked my mom this question because I really couldn't think about it, and she's a physician. And she told me that when she's surveying patients to see if they have like an addiction, that they are asked a series of questions. So I just found a couple of them kind of interesting to my own, and kind of made me pause and think, would I answer yes to these questions? So I'll just, ask them, and you can maybe think about them yourself. The first one is, have you ever felt like you should cut down on your social media use? Have people annoyed you by criticizing your amount of social media use, which kind of goes back to Adam and saying that like your family knows you best. 3, have you felt bad or guilty about your social media use? And then the last one, which Adam talked about again, which is, have you ever used social media first thing in the morning? So that's kind of called like an eye opener. And like I found myself doing this a lot during COVID, where like I would have a hard time waking up, if not to look at my iPhone on my bedside table.
I think your Wi-Fi might have cut out a little bit there for me, Morgan.
If you don't
But
mind,
yeah,
Ryan, I'd like to jump in right here, just while we're on this topic, in case our listeners are interested on this topic of your like bedtime relationship with your personal devices. From conversations with friends, I think two sort of tips that I might have to offer would be one, using a device that's not your phone to have the alarm go off. Our phones have alarms in them, and it's super great and convenient that you can set an alarm for 7 a.m. on your phone, put it by your bed or wherever, and have that wake you up. But I know for myself, I don't have the self-control to like turn off the alarm, have the phone right in front of me, and not open it up and start using another app. It's just 2 swipes of a finger away, and it's too easy. So for me, like having another device, like an actual alarm clock that I use for waking myself up, has been quite helpful. And the second thing I'll do is just actually turn my phone off, like entirely, like not just press the lock button, but actually hold the buttons down, turn it off, and put it away in my backpack, for example. And that just adds one extra layer of friction, if you will, between me using my phone right first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I was going to add, Adam. I think the first thing in the mornings has been a really big one for me personally as well, because it kind of sets you up. At least I think it sets me up for how that day is going to go. So if I kind of start off on the phone, then it's pretty likely that later on in the day I might be using it when I had no intention to. I was going to say as well, Morgan, I think you raised a really good point around being intentional with your screen time. I think when you think about the idea of tech-life balance and how everyone has kind of a different idea, really it seems to be like quite a common theme for sticking with what you've planned to do, how you've planned to use your phone. And you might feel out of sync if, say, you don't intend on using it in the morning, but you find yourself doing that. So that's an interesting one to reflect on. So yeah, maybe one of the points we haven't touched on is so a lot of the times, of course, there's some real benefits to using your phone with all the great apps out there, being able to speak to people across the world, at a moment's notice, and having access to a lot of information. So, is there a way really that you can kind of still keep a healthy balance whilst getting the most out of technology and the benefits that it offers? Geela, I don't know if you have some thoughts on that.
I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. I know there's a lot of benefit to using the phone. I think a lot of it does have to do with intention. Some of the research that I focuses on now looks a lot at IoT enabled healthcare. So how do we create these types of smart devices to help inform us about our own physical and mental health conditions? And so I think whenever we're trying to use these benefits, it's a matter of intention of what purpose does it serve for me? Is it something that I really need, or is it just something that I think looked cool, so I'm tapping on it and downloading it just because I want that type of distraction? I think for me, my guilty pleasure is downloading games on my phone that I see like an ad for a couple of days right after, and it just constantly appears. And that might not be as intentional for me beyond this, it's a distraction to use. But then actually, otherwise, downloading apps or utilizing features and functions on my phone or even on my computer to help me conduct my daily life, whether it's monitoring my health conditions or maybe it's just accomplishing work or even just staying on task with some of the stuff that I have to do throughout the day through like my Google Calendar. I think that's important. So it all just boils down to what's the purpose of what you're using on your phone.
Adam, Morgan, did you have anything to add to that? Yeah, getting that healthy balance whilst getting the most out of technology too. Okay, no worries. So we have a question from the audience. Oh, it's just flicked up in the chat. How have you helped friends think about tech life balance, and what do you hear your peers are struggling with? Are you generally struggling with the same issues, or does it vary?
Go ahead, Morgan.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that kind of my experience with this question, I probably have a healthier balance with my technology than most of my friends. And I think that's because I've taken that first step of like being aware of my time spent. Um, but with that being said, I would say that we're generally struggling with the same issues, that kind of the bombardment of notifications, daily life and your tech life, and also kind of what is most pertinent to my experience and I think to my friends is like social media escapism, and that like using social media as a break from study.
Thanks, Morgan. I think we're having a few Wi-Fi difficulties there, so apologies for that. Adam, I don't know, did you have something to add to answer the question?
Yeah, sure. Just to follow on what Morgan was saying, I think it's something that we all deal with and think about, but it's not something that we talk about very often. Like that's the one thing I found from leading these digital well-being workshops at Shift SE and hearing from other college students is that everyone sort of thinks about these issues of like, okay, I don't want to use my phone so much, or maybe like certain apps on my phone I have a bad relationship with, etc. But it's just not a topic that normally comes up in conversation. So I think just making that first step and just bringing it up in conversation. Like for example, a few nights ago, one of my friends, Sammy, for the first time, I brought up this topic of tech life balance and digital well-being, and I had never spoken about this topic with her, but I didn't know she had so many thoughts and experiences in this realm too. And so that was a great point for us to connect on. So I think just bringing it up as a casual conversation point can actually do a lot more good than like, we might realize.
Geela, did you have anything to add to the question? I think it's just gone off of the screen for me, but it was how have you helped friends think about tech-life balance, and what do you hear your peers are struggling with, and are you generally struggling with the same issues, or does that vary?
I think I share the same struggle with my friends in terms of determining what is our tech life balance when we're constantly using Discord and relying on that to be able to communicate. I think it's always just a matter of, is my personality shifting, or am I behaving differently than I really want to show my authentic self? I think another thing that my peers struggle with a lot more, especially because a lot of my peers are very invested in societal issues and what happens around them just because of the groups that we represent, is just when certain issues are being glamorized over social media. So when certain things become trends, and not knowing if when other people post, is it like a genuine comment? Is it a genuine sentiment? Or is it something that people are just hopping onto just because it's being seen as important throughout the rest of social media portrayal?
Thanks, Geela. So we have another question from the audience. You're all very aware of the impact and have worked on strategies. What advice do you have for sharing these ideas with younger children who may not be open to balance? That's a good question.
I
I
can take
think.
this one.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll take it. Then you can get Morgan. I think that this goes back to I forget who it was, but someone, one of the previous panelists, just an hour or so ago, talked about this. That it's less of looking about what I should like remove in my life, less of looking at it as like a nightmare, and more of it as like a dream. Like what can I add to my life that might make it better? So in the balance is between tech and life, right? And oftentimes we might use personal devices like too much or in a way that's not healthy for us, and so we want to maybe limit that. But the focus point, especially for kids, right, is that the life part, like going out and spending real quality time with their friends in real life. Like they might not realize how fun that can be, and so emphasizing that, getting them out with each other, doing things, I think is the key.
Yeah, and to add on, I started out kind of my social media experience in a middle school teen social media panel. So I was just surrounded by a bunch of other middle schoolers, and we had to communicate about things like this, like um, about strategies and about ways to work on a healthy tech life balance. And I would say kind of two things. The first one being that a lot of times my peers in this middle school group would say they don't have to have a healthy tech life balance because having the phone at the dinner table isn't a problem if mom and dad can have their phones at the dinner table. So that's kind of the first thing, is to like set an example. And I know it's really hard because parents are using their phones a lot of times for different reasons. And those could be work related or like really important things that cannot wait sometimes. But I would say that something that helped me rationalize putting my phone away for a significant part of my day is the fact that my parents don't use cell phones at the dinner table, and that like when we're present as a family, that means everyone doesn't have their phones out. So I think having that as a baseline sets the tone for younger children. But I would also just say that being like of a younger age, kids are super malleable to these ideas. So planting the seeds in the conversation about having a tech life balance and about managing your own tech use, I think that's got to be stressed at an earlier age, which is kind of what I think a lot of us innovators are planning on doing, is bringing that education into schools, but it can also be in homes and conversation, but really pushing it as a way for youth and kids to manage their own tech use, as opposed to having like stricter kind of, I guess, like rules set against them that they don't have say in. That like starting a conversation is probably the best way to get them to self-advocate.
Did you have anything to add to that, Geela?
No, I think the two responses already given summarized it perfectly.
Yeah, that was a great point. I think when I saw the question, the immediate thing that jumped to me is, for parents kind of to lead by example. And also, I guess if you can engage with other parents and get them to lead by example in the same friendship group, then it kind of changes that sort of cultural narrative, at least at a local level. Because it's very difficult, to manage, especially when you're younger. Okay. We have another question from the audience as well. So the people from the Center for Humane Technology talk about the metric of minimizing regret. What do you think of that as a useful approach? Maybe Adam, would you like to start on that one? I think you might have frozen my end, Adam. Are you there, Morgan?
I could start with a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think, so I'm not sure exactly about the metrics, so I was actually just searching it up right now to make sure. I do think it's a useful approach. I don't think we should always approach it like this. I guess the best way to say is that I don't want to always approach using technology from this perspective that I always need to minimize the regret that I'm going to later have based on the negative impact it might cause. Or even with just like, again, going back to interactions with my friends, if I know that if there's a constant shift in how I'm acting a certain way, that eventually might lead me to losing my friends. I don't want to approach technology always with that negative mindset that there's always something bad that's going to happen. At the same time, I don't want to be too optimistic, of course, that I can always stick to whatever habits I want to intentionally change for myself. So I think just having a middle ground of knowing situation, like just constantly being aware of the possible impact it can have if I continue to use technology, and how should I change my habits in doing so.
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing I'll add to this question on minimizing regret and looking at that approach is that I think it's useful to categorize your perspective on your usage of time in two ways. There's the reflective sort of state of mind where you're not, let's say you're not using a particular app, and I'm just sitting here and you're reflecting and thinking about, okay, what's important to me, how do I want to use my time, what's valuable to me. And then there's a state of mind where you're actually using that service, that app, that game, whatever it may be, and you aren't, you don't reflect in that moment. You're just enjoying or being amused or whatever it may be in that moment, right? And so usually the moments of regret come in the reflective state of mind, and we never it's really hard to have that awareness in that's sort of while you're using the app or product or game mind state. And so it's important to, when you're in the reflective state of mind, when you're sitting and thinking about what's important to you, that's when you you realize, okay, I usually regret when I maybe spend this much time on this app, or when I'm on this app when I'm around this person and we're present together, and then taking inspiration or motivation from that conclusion and then applying it later on. It's hard if not maybe even impossible to have, I think, awareness in that moment when you're using some product or apps for a long time. And so taking a step back and a more reflective time is very useful.
Hey, sorry, I think we lost Ryan to some technical difficulties. He is coming in from Slovenia, everyone, so I think it's an even larger jump to get on our stream. Adam, thank you so much for wrapping us up there. Really quick, can I have everyone just say if they think tech-life balance is fact or cap? So Adam, fact or cap?
Fact.
Nice. Okay, Geela, what do you think?
Fact.
Nice. Okay, Morgan. You can also put it in the chat
Fact.
too. Fact. Wow, you guys. I thought we were going to be a little bit different there. That's amazing. Again, thank you so much just for sharing your perspectives on tech-life balance, and also for bringing accountability to us adult allies. I think it really helps us think about the things that we're modeling for just the people that we're around, and also for our younger loved ones that we really care about. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to go ahead and get us into our break so we could do like a stretch break and take a moment to grab a snack and water. I appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone. All right, everyone, I am going to now share a quick meditation video from Layla Murad, and please enjoy.